I was bullied by my twin brother every night. My name is Ava. Today I want to share an unforgettable past with you. Every time I think about it, my heart feels heavy and I can't stop blaming myself. This is a story I wish I hadn't experienced. Many years ago, I was just 18 years old. Living in London with my family. My family is rich. Both my parents are successful. My father is a busy businessman. My mother is a skilled interior designer. Despite their busy lives, they always made time for me and my two twin brothers, Nathan and Jack. They are 2 years older than me. If I had to describe them, I would say they are both very charming and honestly handsome. I have always been lucky to have brothers like them. This Nathan and Jack love me very much. They are like my protectors, have always protected me. They are always the ones I can trust when I am sad. When I fell down or was bullied at school as a kid, Nathan and Jack were the first to come in and defend me. One time I was teased by classmates because of a dress I was wearing. When I came home crying, they didn't just comfort me. They went to the school to confront those kids. They didn't use violence, but their sharp words and cold behavior made sure those kids never bothered me again. They were like heroes to me. They were always ready to help when I needed it. One warm summer day, I walked out of my bedroom. Nathan and Jack were sitting on the sofa, focused on the TV. I didn't know what they were watching, but they looked engrossed. Without thinking, I approached, rubbing my eyes. They didn't notice me approaching. So I playfully jumped onto the couch and sat on the legs of both of them. At that moment Nathan got startled and Jack laughed. "Little sister, what are you doing?" I giggled and said nothing, sitting comfortably on their legs. Rest my head on Nathan's shoulder. "What are you two watching?" I asked. But got no immediate reply. When I glanced at the screen, I realized it was a romantic movie. It was at that moment the movie reached its emotional climax. The two characters on the screen hug and share a passionate kiss. Watching me staring at the screen, both Nathan and Jack became embarrassed. Jack smiled shyly and quickly covered my eyes with his hands. "Don't look at Eva. This is not a children's movie," I laughed, trying to break free from his grip. "I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 18 LOL. Although privately I found the scene hilarious, I continued to try to peek through Jack's fingers, laughing and teasing them. At that moment, I unconsciously moved my hand, balancing on Jack's legs. Whether it was intentional or not, my hand touched something in his pocket. The intense warm feeling startled me and my heartbeat accelerated. I quickly pulled my hand back. I didn't dare look at Nathan and Jack. "Sorry," I stuttered, then quickly stood up and ran to my room. I slammed the door behind me. My heart was pounding. I sat on the bed wondering what just happened. The image of the remote control in Jack's pocket kept replaying in my mind, making me blush. Am I overthinking, or was this an accident? I don't know, but the shame and embarrassment lingered. I couldn't make myself leave my room. The thought of what Nathan and Jack would think of me. I locked myself in my room and went to sleep. I woke up early at 7 a.m. I thought I was still dreaming. But no, a few minutes after waking up, I realized there was a strange sound coming from the next room. My room is located between Nathan and Jack's rooms. Our house has thin walls, so even the slightest noise can travel easily. I'm used to hearing them playing games or talking, but this time the sound was different. At first I thought they were watching an action movie, but I heard the longer it went on, the more I was sure something was wrong. The sound wasn't like typical movie noise. There was a strange rhythm. Sometimes it was long, sometimes it was short. My heart started to beat faster. An idea popped into my head, making my face red. I didn't want to believe it, but the sound was getting clearer. It wasn't music. It wasn't just a normal conversation. Even though the walls blocked the sound, I could still hear the rapid sounds. Sensory noise mixed with heavy breathing. I tried to tell myself to ignore it. But the more I listened, the more I was sure. Nathan and Jack were watching something special. A wave of shame washed over me. Why was I awake? Why did I have to hear this? My heartbeat quickened and I felt like I was burning. I covered my face with my hands, trying to block out the thoughts that kept invading my mind. But the voices seemed to hold me tightly. They became clearer and clearer. I sat up, got out of bed, and quietly opened the door. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I couldn't stay still any longer. I walked quietly down the hallway, trying not to make any noise. But when I reached Nathan and Jack's door, the voices became so clear that it felt like the walls had disappeared. I stood still, not knowing what to do. My heart was pounding and I felt embarrassed and confused. I found my twin brother in his room watching an action movie. I always knew these things would happen. But since Nathan and Jack's rooms were completely different, I bit my lip, unsure if I should go back to my room or stay where I was. Curiosity got the better of me. I leaned against the door trying to calm myself. The noises got louder and pulled me in. Suddenly, the door opened and I stepped back in surprise. Jack stood in front of me, eyes wide with shock. Looked like he was entangled in something. Something he shouldn't have done. We stood there facing each other for what felt like an eternity. The silence was unbearable. Jack cleared his throat to try to break the tension. "Eva, what are you doing here?" he asked, his voice panicked, avoiding eye contact. His face was red. I could tell he was as embarrassed as I was. I didn't dare look at him either. My heart was pounding. I could barely speak. I was just passing by, I stammered. It didn't sound convincing. But it was all I could do. Thinking of it at this moment, just then, the noise in the room suddenly stopped. Nathan walked out from behind Jack. His face was as red as Jack's. They looked at each other. A glance. Trying to find the right explanation. But no one said anything. The awkward silence overwhelmed everything. I forced an uncomfortable smile, trying to hide my embarrassment. Jack scratched his head awkwardly, a shy smile on his lips. "Eva, I'm sorry about what happened before. It's not what you think." Nathan and I were watching a movie. I stood quietly for a moment, looking at him with a hesitant look. His face was red. His eyes were uncertain. I could sense the confusion in his voice. Then Nathan walked behind him. His face was the same, as shy and awkward as Jack's. They were both trying to find the right words. But the atmosphere was so tense that we couldn't seem to talk. It felt like we were all waiting for someone to break the silence. I realized that if this awkward moment continued, it would only get worse. So I took a deep breath and decided to break the ice. I smiled, feeling a little awkward, but trying to sound casual. "Come on, I didn't mean to make things awkward," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "Don't be so nervous. I was just passing by, really." Jack and Nathan looked at each other, silently communicating with their eyes. After a while, Jack sighed and smiled slightly. "Are you sure, Eva, you don't feel uncomfortable?" he asked with uncertainty in his voice. I immediately reassured them, tried to ease their worries. "No, I'm fine actually. I think I love you both more, I quickly added, trying to make them laugh. They all looked at me in surprise. For a moment there was silence. An understanding between us. Then I thought of a way to make things less awkward. I took Jack's hand and pointed at Nathan. Can we go to my room and talk for a while? Both of them were surprised by the suggestion. But after a short pause, they nodded. It seemed to be the only way to break the tension. I smiled and turned. Walked to my room with the two of them. Slowly followed behind. As the three of us sat on my bed, I decided to make a joke to lighten the mood. I looked at Nathan and teased. So this movie is so good that you all lost track of time. Nathan laughed awkwardly. Covered his face with his hands. Come on, Eva, stop joking, just. We didn't expect you to actually hear it. I thought you guys would hear it if you turned up the volume, I said with a playful gleam in my eyebrow. It made us both smile. For a moment, the tension seemed to disappear. After chatting for a while, I felt my curiosity take over. I glanced at Nathan and Jack, wondering if I should bring up the thought that just flashed through my mind. After a brief hesitation, I mustered up the courage to ask, why don't we try to do it like in the movies? The word slipped out before I could stop myself. I regretted it immediately. I didn't know how they would respond. But curiosity took over. Nathan and Jack looked at me with wide eyes. Surprised at what I said. Are you serious? Nathan asked with a puzzled voice. He seemed unable to believe it. What was I hinting at? So bold, I nodded, trying to keep my expression serious. I was just curious. It wouldn't hurt to try to be right, I said, even though my voice was gone. I couldn't look them in the eye. It couldn't be. Jack answered quickly with a firm tone. They all looked away from me. But I didn't give up. Gently squeezed their hands. Try to comfort them. Just try it once. I really want to know what it feels like. They were silent for a while. I could see the conflict in their eyes. After a moment, Nathan sighed and said with a helpless look on his face. Okay, but just this once, we have to keep it a secret. No one can know. The room became silent. We all just sat there, breathing quietly. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. We started cautiously. Every move was careful, but also filled with a strange energy. I'm not sure how much time has passed, but it felt as if the world and everything around us disappeared. It was just the three of us. When the sun rose, filling the room with light, we said nothing. We just lay side by side, breathing evenly. The awkwardness I was worried about was completely gone. Instead, I felt a deeper connection between us, as if we had just experienced something intense together. We walked into the kitchen to prepare lunch. Everything felt strangely natural, as if nothing special had happened. But inside I knew the boundaries between us had shifted. I had no regrets, but felt a new connection, bringing us closer than before. Nathan looked at me with a gentle smile. Are you okay? He asked softly. I nodded in response to his smile. It's fine. I think I love you both more, I replied. The words made me blush, but they held my hand warmly. Their eyes were full of love. They said we loved you, too. Then we continued to eat. From that day on, our relationship subtly but noticeably changed. The closeness we once had was now different. Any invisible distance between us disappeared. Every time our eyes met, I could feel a new understanding, a closeness I had never felt before. But deep down I knew what we were doing was wrong. We had crossed a line. Unknowingly, We had broken the boundaries set by society and morality.